Okay, now I'm delighted to be joined by Cindy Boy Carr, who's the founder and CEO of MySysters and Starter. Hi Cindy, how are you doing?
Good, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, really good. So you're not joining us from Newcastle or the Northeast. So do you want to tell us where you are right now?
Right now, I am in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the U.S.
Okay, so give people a bit of a background. So we first got talking to each other before the very first Newcastle Startup Week Festival in 2017, I think, where we ran it in May, and I think you got in touch around about March time. It was a few months before, two or 3 months before, and you sent me an email saying, I've been reading about Newcastle. I've found this blog that you've written where you're talking about why tech startups should leave London and head north to Newcastle. Is Newcastle still a good place to have a tech startup? So I was like, well, yes, I think it still is, and this is why. And I explained why, and you'd obviously done your homework, you've been looking into it. And then I remember you saying, well, I think I'm going to come over for the whole of Newcastle Startup Week, which I was really excited to hear that you were going to come all the way over for the event. And then I suddenly thought, shit, I hope she enjoys this. Like, she's going to come all the way over. But you did, you came for the whole week, and you really embraced what the event was all about and what the city had to offer. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? And because that is not a normal thing to do, I don't think. And like, what led you to do that?
Well, nothing about being an entrepreneur or starting a business is normal, right? I mean, you just sort of have to take things as they come. And I started in end of 2016. I started the business. I came up with the idea in the summer, did not intend to do anything with it. Just one thing led to another. And at the time, there really wasn't a lot of support in Minnesota for startups. And that's changed a lot. There's a lot more now than there was 4 years ago. So, I think there's a lot more value seen in startups now throughout the US. At the time, there were really 3 cities that you had a choice to go to if you were a startup. There was California, and that was Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston. And Silicon Valley is really San Francisco. If you are female and over 40, just forget it. So I was really looking around the world for tech hubs. Where is their support, and where is their support for health tech, and where is their support for women? And I was looking in Canada, and I don't know who you bribed to get your blog post to show up about Newcastle in those search results. But this blog post from 2012 showed up about why you should take a tech startup to Newcastle. And I read it. It was really interesting. I'd never been to Newcastle, had never heard of it, and I just started looking into it. It's very similar, now that I've been there, it's a very similar feel to Minnesota in a lot of ways. There's a city about 2 hours north of here called Duluth that was built on shipping and mining, which may sound familiar. It's on Lake Superior, and the people are very similar. It's a very similar feel. But it's just a great area. I went over for Newcastle Startup Week, and I went out to Tyneside, to Riley's Fish Shack, and it was just Tynemouth. Thank you. And it was just, I just fell in love with it. The North Sea was just beautiful. I don't know how you arranged that one sunny day for the whole week, but it was gorgeous. There were some interesting moments. It rained so hard the first day that I had to get a new raincoat because it just completely soaked the one that I had. I was not prepared for the UK rain. But yeah, so I went over there for the week. I met amazing people. I signed up for every one-on-one that you had. I mentioned in the video that my background is in law, so I know the value of a one-on-one with an attorney and an accountant and things like that. So I took advantage of all of that, even though I didn't have any specific questions. And after meeting people, I just took the leap, and I moved the business over there with 6 weeks. So the Newcastle Startup Week was in May, and by the end of June, we were registered
Amazing.
in Newcastle. How crazy is that? And here, 3 years later,
yeah. But you've been coming back regularly because you've been moving between the two. So you're still based out there, but you have been coming over to Newcastle, well, really regularly. Like I didn't realize how regular at first, but you have been coming back. Like,
yeah. So I have a daughter who's still in school here, so we were not able to switch schools. We looked into it. That was the intention, was to switch schools, and she would go to school over in the UK. That did not work out the way we had hoped, just because of the way the education systems are set up. But so the way it worked out was the first probably year and a half, I would spend 2 to 3 weeks in Newcastle, and then I would come here and spend 6 to 8 weeks here, and then I would go to Newcastle for 2 to 3 weeks. And I did that for a year and a half. Yeah. And then the second year and a half, I pushed it out a little bit longer. So it would be 8 to 12 weeks here, 2 to 3 weeks there. Just because it got to be a little too much with the travel. But yeah, so I've been there a lot.
Yeah, you've probably been here more than some people in the Northeast as well. You know, you're definitely an adopted Geordie Northeasterner now. But yeah, and obviously the journey of the company. Do you want to talk about that? Because well, let's explain what it is that you do. We'll go into a bit more detail there about what you do, and then how that's evolved since you came to Startup Week.
Mm-hmm. One of the people that I met the first time that I came over for Startup Week was David Dunn from Software City. And I set up a meeting with him for when I came back a few weeks later. And we started working together, and they've been absolutely amazing. They've done a lot to help us out with business analysis. When I first came over there, we did not have an actual product. We had sort of a beta version in the works, but we were still figuring out the market. So MySysters is an app for women going through perimenopause. And there was nothing on the market at the time. So we were still figuring out, who is our market? How big is it? We knew there was excitement about it, but we didn't know if it would sell. So we were still testing the waters. And so having Software City help us out with some of those, business analysis and things like that was really helpful. As that relationship has progressed, they helped us with marketing research. They introduced us to our CTO, Chris Grant, who, I don't know if you met Chris, he is just a phenomenal CTO, and he is now, has shares in the company and has become a tremendous friend, and he's just amazing. I can't say enough about Chris, and I hesitate to do that because I don't want him poached, but he's just a wonderful, wonderful person and an amazing developer. So Software City and Sunderland, if people want to talk about a resource or look up a resource, I highly recommend checking them out because they are absolutely amazing to work with. I can't recommend them high enough. The first week that I was there for Newcastle Startup Week, I met someone from Muckle who has since moved on. And so Muckle has been amazing. I still work with them as a law firm. I still work with Blue Sky, who are accountants. So it's really been an incredible journey. It's been interesting, even for me, looking back, how far we've come. And sometimes when people say, well, how did you get so far so fast? I don't have a tech background, so I didn't know that we weren't supposed to move that fast. Right. I just took things as they came, and this is where we are. And I think Newcastle being a little bit smaller and such a tight-knit community, it's easier to go faster because people know everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I've gone to someone, like when I've had a question and I've met with Dave Gibson at Blue Sky and said, I have this question and I don't know who to ask. He's been able to say, well, why don't you ask this person? Because he knows everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've come to you and I said, I have this question, I don't know who to ask. And you've said, well, go to that person. And you can't do that when you are in a huge tech hub of 8 million people.
Yeah. Definitely. I do think that is one of the strengths. People do talk about it a lot if they're in Newcastle or the Northeast about the close-knit community and the strength of that. But that is unique, or that is something quite special about it that you don't get everywhere else. You do get in other places, but you don't get in everywhere. So shouldn't be underestimated the value of that. And generally, people want to help. They do. I think if they're at events like Startup Week and other entrepreneurial mindset, they do generally want to help other people. And I think as well, the fact that you've come all the way over from the US as well, that's exciting for people. They want you to be successful. They want to help you because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get talented people from the local area, but also from other parts of the world to come here and be part of what's going on. So yeah, and all of those companies that you mentioned there, they were all sponsors for the event as well. So they've obviously, it's worked for them because they've sponsored and they played an active role in the event, and they've done the one-to-ones, and you're not the only one that they've helped, but you are, in my opinion, a real standout of someone that's, I don't know, I'm still really excited that you came over, that you're doing what you're doing, because again, it's not a run-of-the-mill product that you've developed. I think it's a really exciting, interesting, and valuable thing that you're doing as well. So as soon as you told me what it was, I mean, I didn't know what perimenopause was. I knew what the menopause was, but I didn't know what perimenopause was. So I've learned about that through you. But just what you're offering, I think, is of real value to people. So I want it to be successful as well. And I think everyone else that's met you wants the same. So can you remember when you came over that week? What did you think? Like, obviously it was amazing. I mean, there's bits of it that were amazing, but like I don't know, like what do you think? Do you remember how you felt when you came over, like during the week, or were you still not quite sure what to expect when you got here?
I didn't know what to expect. It was a little overwhelming. I didn't understand anything anyone said. I remember partway through the week, I texted a friend in London and I said, why do they keep shouting out random letters of the alphabet just occasionally? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, every now and then they'll stop and they'll yell out Y and I, and I don't understand what's happening.
Excellent.
So he had to explain the whole thing about that. So, but everybody was so friendly and everybody was so nice. And one thing I want to make clear is when I talk about Newcastle being amazing, I include Sunderland, because I spend a lot of time in Sunderland. I include Gateshead. I spend a lot of time in Gateshead. My youngest daughter and I were over in the Northeast last summer, and one of her very favorite places was the Baltic.
Amazing.
She still talks about the Baltic.
Really?
So yeah, and she loved the bridge, walking across the bridge back and forth between the two cities. So she's actually considering going to Newcastle University.
Oh wow.
College. Yeah.
Amazing.
So she loves the Northeast. So the whole area, I've been to Darlington. I've spent time in Darlington and I've met people there. So so I just want to make clear that when I talk about Newcastle, I'm talking about the Northeast as a whole. I haven't just, spent, I don't just come over and go hang out at the monument and that's it. You know, the whole Northeast is is just an amazing place. And you know, if I have my way, you know, that's where I'll spend, you know, the rest of my time after she gets out of school and hopefully goes to college over there. And because I feel like I've become part of the community. You know, I've gone to birthday parties and I've gone to funerals and I've gone to you know, community events, and it's become, I call it my second hometown.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, no, you're right to talk about Sunderland and Gateshead as well, because yeah, despite the name, it's not just Newcastle. It's the whole point. The original aim of the event for me was to promote the whole of the region, the whole of the Northeast, and give everyone a platform to benefit from. And the only reason I called it Newcastle Start of Week, I tend to call things quite obvious things, you know, because it all happens, or definitely the first year, it all happened in Newcastle. All the venues were in Newcastle, and if I called it Northeast Startup Week, some people would think, well, what Northeast is relative. You know, you've got Northeast London, you've got Northeast Scotland. Like, where do you mean? But if you say Newcastle, a lot of people have heard of Newcastle, and it just makes it a bit easier from a marketing point of view. Especially if from the very beginning I wanted it to be a regional thing, but with national reach or potentially international reach as well. So that's what I thought from the beginning. So that's yeah. But it's for everyone. Sunderland, Gateshead, Darlington, Northumberland, South Tyneside, North Tyneside, everyone, and further afields to be part of. So how's it? Tell us a bit more about how MySysters has evolved over the last few years. Like, has it changed massively from what you thought?
Oh boy, yes. We've gone, you know, in some ways we've gone so fast, much faster than I could ever have imagined. In some ways I get frustrated because I'd like to go faster, and we're not able to, for a number of reasons. We have thousands of women using MySysters now, which is, of course, is what we wanted. But it was hard to envision when we started because, you know, we just had no idea. MySysters right now is only iOS. We still have the beta version out there for the Android users. We'd love to do an iOS version, or I'm sorry, a MySysters version for the Android users. Right now we don't have the funding for it, but we built a beta version, really hoping that we could get 500 women to use it. And right now we have well over 5,000, actually closer to 7,500 women using the beta version that we built for 500 women, which is crazy to me. And we have at least that many or more using the iOS version. So I just, even though that was what we wanted, it's amazing to me that that's where we're at. And a lot of we get so many compliments on our user design and our interface for MySysters. And a lot of that is due to Chris Grant. That was really his vision when he saw the beta version. He made so many improvements, and that turned into MySysters, and that was really him. And he did just a fantastic job. So it's working amazingly. I wish we could do more marketing and get the word out. A lot of our, you know, those 15,000 women, a lot of that is word of mouth and social media. So the frustrating thing for me is not having the ability to do more marketing and get the word out there. We have worked with a marketing firm in Newcastle called Twist, and they've been absolutely amazing. I wish that we could triple their budget and send them out to do more. We haven't been able to do that just from a funding standpoint. So that's been frustrating. You know, like every small business has their challenges. people aren't familiar with perimenopause, even women. But the people who hold the checkbook definitely aren't familiar with it. It's becoming, that's changing very quickly. But it is a challenge. That's probably the biggest challenge.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, well, hopefully this will help. Doing this video and through Startup Week as well. So, and I know you have had some good PR, some good media coverage over the last few years and stuff. But yeah, let's see if we can get the word out even more through this. So, do you want to?
We've had, yeah. Can I tell you about an amazing success we had just recently?
Uh-huh.
Good Housekeeping named us a must-have app for women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, which was yeah, I was so surprised. We didn't know that was happening. We didn't find out until about a week later, when the accounts just spiked, and we were like, I think something happened. What happened? And we went back and we found out the Good Housekeeping. So yeah, both Women's Day and Good Housekeeping have named us a must-have app for women. So we know that we are doing good work for women, and we're helping women, which is, it's definitely its own reward. I mean, that's how this all started.
Yeah.
Was to help people like us and women like us. So that is very satisfying.
Yeah.
That's been a huge success for us.
Yeah, no, you're smiling. Look, you should be smiling.
Yes, I was so thrilled about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
honestly, you should. I'm sure you did, and you're still happy. But it's moments like that you should really take some time to enjoy that, because that is a big win, big success. And like you say, when going back to the original idea, to have just a thought, an idea of something that you thought would be valuable to, well, you thought would be valuable to you and friends and people in your network, and then you thought it would be valuable to a lot of other women, and then to create something out of nothing, and then have all those thousands of people using it. That's amazing. That is a success. So you should be very proud of what you've done. I know it's not easy. It never is easy, but you have done a good job. So what do you do now? Like, what's your challenges now, or what are you wanting to do next?
Our challenge right now is to do the same thing for well, I don't know if I can say it's the same thing for men, but we don't live in a vacuum. Most of us have partners, husbands, spouses. Like you said, you had never heard of perimenopause. Most men haven't, like a lot of women haven't. And we heard from a lot of men that they wanted to support their partners, but they didn't know how. So we have created a similar app for men. And of course, men have hormones as well. And we all go through stages. We all have hormones. They go up, they go down. So we are working on something for men, so that men can not only help their partners, but they can take care of themselves better, mentally, physically, and the apps work independently, but they work together. So marriage counselors have found that one of the major pain points in a relationship is when the two people come home at the end of the day. They both have had a lot of stress, and now they have to try and find a way to reconnect. And we're working on these apps, sort of easing that pain point. Now, it's not going to solve your communication problems, but it will help sort of open that door. And that's kind of what we're working on in the context of wellness.
Yeah, amazing.
That's all we're doing, is solving all the world's marital problems, the mental health problems, the health problems.
Yeah, no, yeah, just a few small things that you're trying to do there, but I think
that's right.
Yeah, I think anyone, well, myself included, there's definitely times when you're just not on the same wavelength, or you just don't. Doesn't matter what you say or do, you're just not in tune with each other, and a lot of the time it possibly is to do with hormones or changes or stress, and you just don't know what's going on. But if you have a symptom tracker or some sort of wellness tool that's going to make you more, well, if nothing else, more aware of where these things might arise or where the problems might be, I think that there is value in that. And maybe 4 years ago, not many people were thinking along those lines, but I think definitely now it's maybe even more timely to be having something like that. So you might be pushing against an open door now, whereas before you might have people who were a bit more questioning of the value of that. So have you found that as well? Because sometimes as well, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a real innovator, you can be too early on something. I don't know if you found that like, have you found it a bit easier to explain what it is now or not?
It's gotten easier every year. So when we first started, there was one of the reasons we started with the perimenopause was because when I was going through all my issues, like nobody ever told me anything. And so I didn't know that some of this, like migraines, I didn't know that the migraines that were just taking me out were hormone related. So, this kind of all started because I thought I have to tell women this, like somebody needs to warn other women like this, these migraines just aren't completely isolated. So, and when I first started talking about it, some people were receptive and some people were like, no, I'm too young. I don't want to deal with this. But now I think it's become a little bit more acceptable to talk about perimenopause as opposed to menopause. But there's some people just don't want to talk about it at all. And so the world's a big place. It's not for everyone. We have a lot more competition now. There have been probably half a dozen apps, menopause related, similar to ours, that have been released in the last 3 years. Some have come and gone already. And what that tells me is that people are a lot more willing to talk about it and deal with it. And if you do it well, then you can make a big impact and you can help a lot of people. I don't claim to understand men, so I don't know. I don't know when and if men will ever be willing. But as you know, in relationships, being willing to engage with your partner is half the battle in a relationship. Just being willing to have a conversation or being willing to take steps to improve the relationship, that's what makes all the difference in making things better. And if you do that sooner rather than later, you can avoid a lot of difficulties down the road.
No, definitely. I think that's the thing, before it's too late. Because if you both still want to try and you're both willing to give it a go, but then if you leave it too late, then the resentment's already set in, and it's like it's too late. But maybe something like your tracker, your wellness apps might prevent some problems arising, some relationships ending. If people were using your things sooner.
Or you start with the next relationship. If you're too late with the relationship you have, or if I'm already, I'm divorced. So a lot of the people men that I'm dating are divorced, and we all think about what we might have done different. And for a lot of us, it's we need to communicate better. How can we communicate better in ways that we didn't before?
Well, we'd like to think that's the aim, isn't it? That each relationship's a bit better, or you learn from each relationship, so the next one's maybe a bit better than the one before.
Right. Right. So if you meet someone and they say, well, I don't know what went wrong, just run.
Yeah.
Because they haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They blame everyone else, and it's not them.
Right.
So I think we have talked in the past about funding, and like, because you haven't had any funding, have you? You haven't had any. Have you had any grants? You've had a few kind of small. No, you've had funded things. You've had funded support or subsidized support, but yet you've never had any funding or investment, have you?
No, we've bootstrapped everything.
Yeah. Is that? Have you looked into it? Is it something you want, or you're not interested in that?
We've looked into it. We've applied for grants. We have not been accepted to anything. We've applied to a couple of things now. We took a break for a couple of years between applying, and we just took things slow and paid for things as we could on our own. There's a lot of freedom in doing that, and I'm glad that we did, because we've been able to do things the way we wanted to do them. Like, nobody's telling us what to do.
Yeah.
If we want to try and do something, we get to do it.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing freedom when you really think about it. That's having that choice is a great thing. There's a trade-off for that. You have to go slower, unless you have a lot of money of your own to put into it. But having that control over your day and having that control over your own business, sort of a dream come true in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. No, I get that as well, because I've not had any funding or investments, and I have looked into it. Like last year, I did start speaking to a bunch of investors, and none of it was quite right. It was either not enough money. It was like the amount of money was just so small you couldn't do anything with it. Or I did get an offer of quite a lot of money, but with that meant giving up a lot of the business. So in effect, I was just going to become a paid employee of them, and they didn't necessarily. I didn't feel like they had the same necessarily values as me and what I was trying to do. So, but it was tempting. It was tempting to get offered a very large amount of money. Yes, the argument was, well, look, a small percentage of a successful company is more than 100% of a small company. Yeah, you can argue that, but giving up that freedom and flexibility and autonomy to do things the way I want to, it wasn't right. So I'm glad I didn't do that. And it definitely, the situation we're in at the minute, it would have been totally the wrong thing to be in.
Exactly. And I kind of joke about having this training as a lawyer and being older. I mean, a lot of times when I go to tech conferences, I could be their mother, right? I'm that much older than everybody else there. However, having that experience and that training as an attorney, when I read some of these terms, like we were in the finals for some, I don't know, some funding or something, and when I read the terms, I actually pulled us out of consideration. I was like, this is a terrible deal. I'm taking no, thank you very much. I mean, I did it nicely because never burn a bridge, but I just thought that was like the worst deal ever, and it wasn't even that much money. So I was just like, no, thanks anyway. And if you look at a lot of the VC money, especially the really huge deals that make the papers, a lot of times it's a lot of really young entrepreneurs. And if you follow that money through, when they sell and exit, the really young entrepreneurs don't walk away with that much money. And a lot of times on exit, the entrepreneurs don't make anything. The VCs make a ton of money, but the kids who started the business, they might not make anything. So for every, I don't want to say the names of the companies, but so for every success story that you hear about, the entrepreneurs who make $1 billion, there are a lot more who walk away with nothing but the VCs got rich. So those term sheets that the VCs will give to the entrepreneurs, they will always, always benefit the VC. The VC will always make money. The entrepreneur, maybe, maybe not. But they will never be weighted in terms of the entrepreneur.
Yeah. There is that balance of power is tipped in favor of the people with the money, and I mean, it's not that there aren't good investors out there, but yeah, a lot of the time it does come across as exploitative, and for some people that is the ultimate aim, just to raise a lot of money, and they're not thinking beyond that. But that's not my aim, and I don't think it is. You want to build a business, you want to create products that are going to help people, be of value to people. You want them to be sustainable. Yes, you want to make money along the way, but just making money isn't the aim, the end point. Because if someone comes along and drops a load of money into something, but then they totally change the strategy of the business, or they shut it down, or they don't do what's right for the users, then that's not what you got into it for. So
and they can fire you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
If they give you a lot of money, they will be able to fire you.
Well, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, are you well, I guess it's hard to know, isn't it? But you keep doing what you're doing, but do you think you might? Are you thinking ahead? Are you looking at just like growing the business steadily, or are you looking to maybe exiting, like selling it to a bigger company, or you're not even thinking along those lines yet? Like if a big I don't know, can't think of a suitable company, but if a good company that sort of aligned with your values and could see the benefit of what you're offering and said, look, we love this, and we'll give you some money, and we'll have a partnership in place, or something, or we'll just buy it off you and you make some money, but you remain on our board of directors, and you like strategy, or I don't know. Would you be open to that?
I will have any conversation.
Okay.
So Paul, if you want to give me, several $1 million, I will have that conversation. So I don't know. I mean, 6 months ago, we didn't know we were going to have a pandemic. So, and I'd be stranded in Minneapolis. I mean, who knew? 6 months from now, who knows what's going to happen? So I have a number of possible routes and plans, and any of those might happen. So like I said, I will have any conversation. But there's no 5-year plan. I have 5-year projections, but there's no 5-year plan, because I don't, 5 years ago I was married and living in the suburbs, and I had my life planned out, and I never thought I'd start a business. Life just doesn't work like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the way to live. Well, for me anyway, keep open to ideas and opportunities. I mean, the video that you've done is absolutely amazing. Like an entrepreneur's guide to coping with the end of the world is just so good. Love it. It's so funny and inspiring and uplifting. But it's a real reminder of just how things can change so hugely.
Yeah. Well, it's a challenge to laugh right now, and sometimes it's important to remember that it is okay to laugh, even in the midst of a global pandemic. And part of that comes from my mom passed away a few years ago, and before she passed away, she spent 7 years sort of descending into this other world of dementia. And one of her caregivers told us sort of at the beginning, you can laugh or you can cry, and you need to learn to laugh, because otherwise you're going to go down before she does. and that was hard, you know, especially for my dad. It was hard for him to understand that it's okay to laugh when some of these really bizarre things happen. And there were some very bizarre moments that happened in those 7 years. And what's called dark humor, gallows humor, or something like that. But you have to do that. And it's okay to do that, because life does continue, and we are going through a very strange and difficult time, and that's okay. And every day I go through a dozen different emotions, and it's this roller coaster, and it's exhausting, and I don't necessarily want to do it. But what helps me is to remember that this is temporary. It would be easier if we had an end date, if somebody would say, oh, you just have to go through this trauma until July, or till January, or till 2022. And I think that's the most difficult part, is that we don't know. So our challenge is to manage that constant risk and change. But we can't sit around and cry this whole time. You know, we just have to rely on each other. We have to reach out to one another. We have to find ways to be there for each other in new ways. And sometimes we have to look backwards and be reflective and find ways that worked in the past, and do those ways as well. So you know, if we think about 5 years from now, when we reflect on now, are we going to like who we are now? When we look back, are we going to like what we did? Yeah. That wasn't the most coherent answer, but
well, from where I'm sitting, that sounded amazing. So that was a really good thing to say, what you said there, because it's a horrible thing that everyone's going through, and it is very serious, and some people are really ill and people are dying, you know. But yeah, you can find moments to laugh, and there's still joy in the world, you know, and you can get, even just, I mean, people are doing it everywhere, but even on a morning when I'm going out, like I'm going for early morning walks, I'm just enjoying little things, like hearing the birds singing, and just, I'm really, the sights and the sounds and the smells, and just, I'm living in the city centre, which I absolutely love anyway. I know it really well, but I'm using it as an opportunity to explore new places that I've not been to before, like looking around corners and like what's there, and I've never paid much attention to that before. And then I'm really stopping to look, like really look, and taking photos of interesting things, and I'm sharing it, and I'm enjoying that, but other people are enjoying that as well, and connecting in new ways, and things like this, you know, the fact that we're talking now, and people who watch this, I think will get a lot out of it as well. And social media, obviously you can't replace physical, you know, being in with someone, and I get a lot of energy from being around other people, but I'm still enjoying life, and I'm still enjoying what I'm doing, and keeping in touch with people in so many different ways. But I'm probably communicating more with people now than I was before, in so many different ways. So there's phone calls, there's FaceTime, there's the Zoom, there's social media, even little things like, some small shops in Newcastle are still open, but it's social distancing. You know, you got to keep your distance, but talking to small shopkeepers in ways that I wouldn't have as much before, and just having that few moments of human connection is, and then like you say, looking out for people as well, because there's a few people who I've noticed are struggling online, or like little clues, and then reaching out to them and checking that they're okay, and they're not okay, but they appreciate that, getting in touch with them. And then if I've been feeling a bit down, they've looked out for me as well. So yeah, we just got to all keep an eye out for each other. and we will get through it. It's not forever. The world,
Yeah.
it won't necessarily get back to as it was, but it will. It'll be hopefully a better version of what we had before.
Right. And it doesn't have to stop. The world doesn't have to stop. And I don't think it should completely. You may not be able to start your business today for entrepreneurs, but you can take steps. You can put the building blocks in place. Even if you have an accountant, I have 3 accountants on 2 continents, and they're all named Dave, right? So, and I still have to learn how to read a profit and loss statement. So even if someone can't incorporate their business, they can, go online and learn small things. How do you keep your books? How do you read a profit and loss statement? What is the market for the business that they want to start? What is their market? How do I build an app?
There's so much to do. Yeah, exactly. There's so much.
Yeah.
Like the days, still fill your days with things, but it's just a different pace, but there's so much you can do, and well, hopefully this week as well, like the Lancaster Startup Week online event that we're doing, there's so much great content. I know you haven't seen any of it yet, but there is so much, as well as this conversation, there's so much great content that's already been produced and is going to be produced this week. But if people really get into it, they're going to come away just like the physical event. If they open themselves up to learning and trying new things, start something new. That's the strapline that I've been using. Then they will be better equipped for what's next.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that for as trying as this has all been for established businesses, the ones that are managing it the best are the ones that have all the traits of an entrepreneur. They are creative, they are adaptive, and they persevere. They found ways to pivot. There's a restaurant just a couple of blocks from where I live, and they are doing an enormous amount of business, and they're closed. But the way that they have adapted with the communicating with the community, preparing meals, delivering them, providing takeout, has really been phenomenal. And so I think that's a lesson. And whether you are a stay-at-home parent or a business of a large retailer or a restaurant or what have you, my neighbor is a massage therapist, and she's been unable to work for weeks now. So she has started delivering things to people where her mom lives, which is about an hour from here. And so she has managed an income that way. So, she has become an entrepreneur that way. So, we all need to be entrepreneurs all the time. We are always evolving personally and professionally. And the traits that make a good entrepreneur as a small business owner are the same traits that make us good entrepreneurs overall. And my youngest daughter used to take tennis lessons, and one of her coaches used to talk about perseverance. And he defined perseverance as, I will try one more time forever.
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. And as as an entrepreneur and a small business owner, there are some tough days. And it's not just one tough day and then everything's great. There can be tough days for weeks on end. And you just have, sometimes you just have to keep going.
Yeah, definitely.
even when you would rather just sleep for a week. You get up and you just keep going.
I think that is the thing. So, yeah, resilience and perseverance, and yeah, just keep going. Definitely, I think if you are already entrepreneurial, it's now's the time. It is like good preparation. Like it rise to the challenge. I think that's definitely how I feel, and other people I've been speaking to lately. It's like, well, yeah, it's pretty hard, but that's why we got into what we're doing now, because we're seeing problems and overcoming them, and seeing better ways of doing things. So now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, amazing. Right. So if people want to, I think we'll leave it there. But if people want to download your app, obviously it's available on iOS right now, and Android. How do they get that? Can they get that now, or is that on the App Store? Did you say, or not?
It's not in the App Store, so they can communicate with us on the MySysters Facebook page. That's probably the easiest way.
Yeah.
And MySysters is in the App Store, so start there.
And it's spell MySysters. Make sure they got it right.
It's small M-Y, capital S-Y-S-T-E-R-S.
Yeah, MySysters.
We're at mysysters.com.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, fantastic. Right. Okay. Well, I think people are going to love hearing what you got to say, and they're definitely going to love your video as well. If they haven't already seen it, they need to check that out. But we'll keep pointing people to both, and then I know you're 6 hours behind us over there, so you maybe dip in and out the Facebook group at different points. But yeah, encourage people to download the app and spread the word about what you're doing. So thanks again.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, love talking to you, and again, like, just really happy that you got in touch all those years ago, and that you're still going strong. All right.
Yeah, it's been great. So have a great week.
Thank you. All right. Cheers, Cindy. Bye.
Bye.